Good evening, everyone. We're going to start with a question regarding the Biosecurity Act. I don't know if you guys are aware of Trevor Hold. Trevor Hold has been an amazing warrior and an amazing at the front of dealing with the fire ant situation. He's a farmer from the Lockyer Valley. He also does a service where he knows to eradicate fire ants with a steam process, which genuinely works. He's put a lot of his own funds into the protest about this, and he has been at the forefront. He was arrested when they came to his land for this, and he sent a message today saying that there has been new additions to the Biosecurity Act that have been passed through to,
Hmm.
to basically state that they can enter the property and we can't stop them. However, Zev is going to share this Biosecurity Act and share the changes made on page 3, I believe, and then he will speak into why that they can't do that. So,
Also, too, this is new info when I got the Savo, and I'm also curious as to when that was put through Parliament to amend the Act.
yes, I
So, can I have a share screen?
yes, you should have that now.
All right. So this is the recent one that we got sent through was under the Biosecurity Act of 2014. So I'm just doing some notes because I'll pull that up in a minute and have a look. 2014. We'll have a look at the act in a minute. Now, when I first got sent this, I was like, oh, holy crap, that is a mountain of documents and stuff to read. So I started just having a skim over it. Um, First of all, was our purpose and rationale. Yeah. Provides for the establishment of prevention and control programs, multiple. Prevention and control programs are directed at any of the following: preventing the entry, establishment of spread of biosecurity matter in an area that poses significant risk, and managing, reducing, or eradicating any biosecurity matter in an area that could pose a significant biosecurity risk. Nowhere there is a state the only way possible and imaginable to do this is by poisoning everyone's property. It just says that there are to be multiple programs, control programs, plural. Yeah. Native two, it's got a bigger thing about, in the US alone, we don't care about what's happening in the US because we're not in the US. Yep. And different climate, different environment, different ecology and ecological system here. It doesn't work the same for what they're claiming for on here. And they're claiming that in the US it's spread to here in Queensland. Red ants were discovered in early 201. So it's taken them 25 years to come up with a program. National cost share eradication commenced and rah, rah, rah. Yarra and Gladstone are moving south apparently because they like to migrate. So Brisbane area and rah, rah, rah. I'm just going to skip down to the important part that I found here. Measures that are required to achieve the purpose. Key activities in the program include but not limited to entry by authorised officers to carry out activities directed towards achieving the program's objective. See 3.4 below. So we'll come back to 3.4 in a minute for what the program's objectives are, which I was led to believe was to control and to eradicate their spread. Powers of authorised officers, and this is where it gets dodgy, provides under a prevention and control program. So prevention and control. Officers appointed as authorised officers, which again, guys, they must provide proof of the fact that they are authorised officers. It cannot be blanket. 3ZZIA Federal Crimes Act instrument of delegation. If you are purporting to be a Crown or Commonwealth official or officer, you are by federal law required to present your instrument of delegation confirming that fact. Otherwise, you could be looking at 2 years in jail, which is an indictable offence, allowing us to perform citizen's arrest, just on a side note, for the act of impersonating a Crown or Commonwealth official or officer. It says under the Act, they are permitted to enter a place to undertake activities to achieve the objectives of the prevention and control. These activities must be done in a timely and efficient manner to ensure that the measures are as effective as possible. The program will authorise entry into places to allow these measures to be undertaken in accordance with the Act. A reasonable attempt will be made to locate an occupier and obtain the occupier's consent to the entry prior to an authorised officer entering a place to undertake activities under the program. So, in accordance with the Act, they must, at the very least, and they have to show proof of any reasonable attempts to locate and contact the occupier of the land for that. And then it goes on to say, nevertheless, an authorised officer may enter the place if, after a reasonable attempt is made to locate the occupier, or the occupier refuses to consent to the entry. If after entering a place, an authorised officer finds an occupier present or the occupier refuses to consent to the entry, an authorised officer will make reasonable attempts to produce an identity card, no, an instrument of delegation, for inspection and inform the occupier of the reason for entering and the authorisation under the Act for the, with or without their permission. It says that an authorised officer under the program must make a reasonable attempt to inform the occupier of any steps taken or to be taken, and if steps have been taken or to be taken, and it's an offence to do anything that interfere with a step taken or to be taken. They must leave notice in a conspicuous position and reasonably secure way, and the notice must state date and time and entry information. So I've got to let you know that they've been. Now, is this, yeah, page 3 here? This is where it started to get interesting, and I was like, hey, hang on a minute. So 237 of the Biosecurity Act, which we'll have a look at in a second, provides that an authorised officer may, at a reasonable time and place within an area to which program applies, direct an occupier to take reasonable steps within a stated reasonable time frame to remove or eradicate the red imported fire ants. So yes, I'm happy to eradicate them and remove them myself without the use of poison. Let's go for a wander around the property. You identify the problem areas of where they are. I will dig them out with a shovel and pour whatever I like over them, put them, set fire to them, whatever, make sure they're no longer there. So, reasonable time frame to remove or eradicate the red imported fire ants. Now, in order to remove or eradicate them, we need to identify if they're present on the property first. So, welcome to biosecurity goes on, mate. Let's do a walk around the property. You identify where they are, and I'll be happy to remove or eradicate them in my own chosen way of doing so without the use of poison. As CJ was saying, Trevor's got a steam thing that can use it. There is other sand and other natural ways that these guys can be dealt with without poisoning the property. Hell, you can just dig the whole area up, throw it in a wheelbarrow, pour a bit of, citronella oil, whatever, on it, and set fire to it. Fire ants eradicated. Yeah, it's to remove or eradicate them. We're happy to remove them, mate. Yeah, we'll remove them and then we'll call you when we've got them in a sealed bag and you can come and get them. Yeah, we're compliant. There's nothing in here that says you must allow them to use poison on your property. These steps must be limited to what is reasonably necessary to achieve the purposes of this prevention and control program. So, setting fire to them, as an example, I'm not recommending anyone does it, of course, but as one way of doing it, would eradicate them. Yep, digging them up would also eradicate them. Don't need to poison them. We can steam them. And you can come along and do a secondary inspection and confirm they're all dead. They've been eradicated. No need for poison. Destroy red imported fire ants or a carrier of red imported fire ants if the authorised officer believes on reasonable grounds that they pose a significant biosecurity risk. Now, let's just look at this. This one shits me to tears, guys, and has done for years. If the authorised officer believes on reasonable grounds, George versus Rocket, 1990, before the High Court. Very famous case that involved the police who fucked up right royally in that case and didn't go well for them. Just have a read of that case. George versus Rocket, 1990, High Court of Australia. It was established in that case that the police operated on a whole heap of, but we've got reasonable grounds of belief. Well, the High Court determined that you can't have reasonable grounds of belief without first the facts and evidence being provided to base those reasonable grounds of belief on. So, for whatever they deem necessary to pose a risk, mate, you need the facts and evidence first to base those reasonable grounds of belief on. One of you or two of you even come for a walk with me, leave your equipment at the gate. There's no poison on the property. Let's do a walk and you identify where the fire ants are and I will control and eradicate them. You can come back in 2 or 3 weeks' time and sign off on it. Easy done.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
You know how they're just going from house to house and blanket, it's just a blanket poisoning of each property, right? Without
Yep.
even checking that there's fire ants, right? It's a bit like treating kids with head lice that don't have head lice.
Yeah.
How do you prevent that? Like, it's based on what you've just said. Is there a written notice? You know how we've got the no trespass sign? Next to the no trespass sign, can we have a complete laminated notice that's rebutting this section all ready to go?
If we can rebut the section, you want to invite them on, identify where they are, and I'll control and eradicate them myself. Your assistance is not required.
I know, but that's you, Zev, and you could totally do that. But if it's just some, you know, lovely lady in her,
In a couple of weeks, look, again, I'm off on Monday. I'm on calls till 9:30 the next couple of days to get through everything. I won't have a chance to do that for a couple of weeks.
no, I'm not talking that. That's cool. That you won't need to do it. What I'm saying is, I can do that. But what I'm saying is, don't you think that for the layman, that a notice that's laminated, ready to go for when they come to that gate is important because then, when, if you're taken by surprise, everything goes out of your brain, you
Yeah.
forget about it.
Well, happy to work on something like that to help everyone in South East Queensland dealing with this BS. But
Because then it's there, because then you can say, please refer to, even have the whole bios, have this document printed and highlight in this page 3 and
and
say,
it's also true. It says that they to direct an occupier to take reasonable steps. Now let's look at the word reasonable. We need to be able to reason, the ability to reason. It is not, oh, you've got to take the reasonable steps of letting us use poison. Well, hang on. In order to take reasonable steps, there must be more than one option provided. It is highly unreasonable to say there is only one solution to a problem. There is always more than one way to skin a cat. So
yes,
I'm going to be giving reasonable steps. Let's explore again, guys. You've heard me talk about this, my tea coffee argument. Just because the option isn't offered doesn't mean the option isn't available. If you're offered tea and coffee, go for the beer or the whiskey. There's always more options available than what is being offered. And in order for this to be done with any sort of reasonable attributes to it, other options must need to be explored. And again, guys, if you're dealing with this, mate, come onto the property. Yeah, I'm home now. Now's actually a good time. Or make an appointment. I'll be home on this day and time.
but what's going to stop them? So say it's just a little old lady in her property.
All right, so because they've said that they have to take reasonable steps to locate the occupier and grant consent. Yep, mate, happy to give you consent. How's Thursday the 17th at 10 a.m. sound for you?
Absolutely. So this section needs to be educated to all to
Yep.
say that, they want us to believe that they have the power just to come on and do whatever they like. But in their own Biosecurity Act, it states otherwise.
Well, no, it says that they still have the authority, but first they can't just do, oh, mate, we tried to contact you and we couldn't, so we're here. Well,
Yeah.
hang on. I contacted you guys. I sent a letter out to your office. I rang your boss, whatever, and I said Thursday, 10 a.m. What are you doing here at Tuesday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon? We had an agreed time. You wanted consent to entry. I've given you that at the prescribed time. Yeah. So come back at Thursday at 10 a.m. and I'll be here. And then we can go through our reasonable steps that you can give directions under for the eradication and control of. Now, in order to eradicate or control something, first we need to identify where they are. So let's do a walk around the property, fellas. You identify where they are, and I will do the control and eradication measures without the use of poison. Once that's done, I'll notify, and you can come back and sign off on it and say, yes, they've been controlled and eradicated. There needs to be more than one There's bullshit the government's been doing since COVID. Oh, it's an emergency. We all get emergency powers where we can do what we like. And there's no other option imaginable that could be used for this emergency other than the one that we're making a shit ton of cash off and enforcing on everybody. Hello, jabs. Just saying, There are other options for dealing with that, like our ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. Hell, sunlight, exercise, and fresh air, the very things they banned everyone from having. Funny about that. This is the same problem with the fire ants. It's an emergency. We've got emergency powers. The emergency powers cannot limit or restrict any other option available. That is just absolutely absurd. Not even a legal argument, this one. This is common sense. So, failure to comply with the direction under 238, which we're going to have a look at in a minute as well, guys. Occupiers of a place are obligated to comply with an authorised officer's direction issued under 230 of the 237 of the Act. Once they confirm they are actually an authorised officer and we're not operating on reasonable grounds of belief, and we've got facts and evidence to base that on, we've identified the areas that need to be controlled and eradicated, mate, you can direct me to control and eradicate them. I will. There's nothing in here that says that you have to control and eradicate the fire ants with their chosen use of bloody poison. Now, the aerial control measures is horrendous. They're going to leave that alone because that is just absolutely fucked, for lack of a better language. They can just air spray fire ant infested properties. First, we've got to show that they are infested. Obligations. Person who is an occupier of a place may be obligated to take action as specified in the authorisation in 3.6 below. So 3.6 authorisation, have a look at 3.4. General powers. Nothing in the program or associated authorisation limits the powers of authorised officers under Chapter 10 of the Act. So it limits the power of them. So any authorisation of a Commonwealth or Crown official or officer must have some limitation of powers, and the Act cannot grant unfettered powers. It's not where they get granted that from. It's come from the minister and heads of departments, not from the legislation. Yeah, limits the powers of an authorised officer. That's the program. So the program doesn't limit any powers of authorised officers under Chapter 10 of the Act, which we're going to look at in a minute as well. And the local governments from the area to which the program relates have been consulted. Can we get details of that consultation process? Considering that our so-called local governments or councils are elected to represent the will of we the people, is it not in the public interest to have the information of those consultations that were occurred between the state, so-called local government and these companies doing so, all of which are profiting off heavily?
Yes.
So Dr. Elizabeth Woods, the Chief Executive of the Department of Fisheries, she doesn't answer any responses. Even lawyers have tried contacting her and crickets. 235 of the Act as well. We'll have a look at that as well shortly. Authorise the prevention and control program on the basis that I am satisfied that red imported ants are in Queensland and satisfied that measures are required to prevent the establishment or spread. Yes, measures are required to deal with it, but those measures are not exclusive to the use of poison. There are other measures that can be employed. We need to explore the options rather than looking at options A and B. What about options C through Z? There's always more options available than that which has been offered, yeah? And I'd be hounding the hell out of this woman for if she's putting her name on it, that's who we talk to. That's who we send shit to, yeah? Purpose of the program, prevent the establishment and spread of and manage the risk or eradicate. Yep, doesn't say that they can only do it with poison, does it? So it said to mention 3.4 for our authorised officers, guys. Look, an authorised officer of the program appointed under the Act may it now. Acts do not grant authorisation. That comes from ministers, not pieces of paper. How can a piece of paper which cannot read, write, or speak grant you authority? It's not how it's attained. So an authorised officer of the program appointed under the Act. The Act doesn't appoint anyone. They're appointed by ministers and Department of Primary Industries and Agriculture and Fisheries, etc. May enter a place other than a residence without a warrant. But if you need it's a residence, that changes because it says other than a residence. Without the occupier's consent under the program, an authorised officer under the Act will also have the power to enter a place under the program, but other than a residence. So if you reside there, it changes. There we go. And we zoom in on the fine print at the bottom there. The Act defines a residence to mean a premises or part of a premises that's a residence within 259 and 23, which basically means someone resides there. It's a residence. So I can't do it for a residence. It says other than a residence. Very clear. And they said they can exercise powers of an authorised officer under the Act in relation to the program if the authorised officer is appointed by the Chief Executive. That's this lady, isn't it? The Chief Executive Director General, Dr. Elizabeth Woods. Where is your written appointment from the chief executive? Can we see it? No, I've got an ID card. It doesn't cut it. It's all smoke and mirrors, guys. Search any part of the place. Yeah, I'll come and do a search with you. You show me where they are and I'll deal with them. Nowhere does it say in here that the only option they can do is to use poison. Yeah. Now it's said to have a look at 3.6 for their further obligations here. Yeah. Person who is an occupier of the program relates may be required to refrain from disturbing or irrigating areas that have been treated by so as to maximise the efficacy of bait. Well, they can't be putting that on areas that are irrigated for food crops and stuff, etc. as well. So there's a massive conflict there for be restrained from irrigating areas that they've put the poison down. They're not allowed to use the poison when it's about to rain, and they've been doing it on the same day it's going to rain all over Queensland. Remove anything or on a place that would obstruct an officer undertaking these activities required to eradicate them. This may include mowing, slashing an area prior to bait treatment being applied, and to help them in the execution of their powers. As long as it's done lawfully, we're happy to assist. We don't want the fire ants either. But again, there are more ways to deal with this than using poisons and bait for that. Yeah. So it says to maximise the efficacy of the bait that you can't irrigate certain areas. If there are certain areas that require irrigation, they can't put bait there. Now, reasonable excuse. It's always in there somewhere because the politicians who have properties in this area aren't having this shit done on their properties, yeah? So a person of whom a help requirement has been made must comply with that requirement unless they have a reasonable excuse, such as, yeah, there are other methods that are reasonably available to deal with the control and eradication of. You're basing everything on reasonable grounds of belief in breach of High Court case law by not having the facts and evidence provided first. You haven't showed your written authority from the chief executive or the minister, showing that you are in fact an authorised officer operating on behalf of the Crown of the Commonwealth, or 2 years in jail for not providing the correct information. So it will begin on July 2016 and will continue until there are no national red imported fire ant. That's not right. Will continue to operate until there are no national red imported fire ant eradication programs operating in Queensland. So what, this is just a permanent emergency now where they're just going to do it everywhere? Or shouldn't it be until there are no red imported fire ants located or discovered? It's a permanent eradication measure where they're just going to poison everyone's properties indefinitely. They can't be doing that. To achieve the program's purpose, which is the control and eradication, which is not infinite. And if the program's not working, how does it take 10 years to do? Clearly the program's not working. Chief Executive and Fisheries have consulted prior to with the local governments within the state, which are the local governments for the areas to which that applies. We want details of that consultation to be provided and any financial transactions that occurred as a result of those consultations as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got all the references. I'll be looking up any of those references too, by the way, guys. So that is the latest that we have on our fire ant fuckery, as I refer to it, guys. I hope for you guys in southeast Queensland, some of that is helpful. Now, I'm just going to pull up while we've let's move this out of the way. What happened there?
That would work, actually. Yeah, that's small flowers would work.
Sarah, me and my shitty internet. This is how long it takes to open a browser page.
That seems fun.
No, Biosecurity Act, here we are, 214 on the Austlii site. Now, as always, guys, the first thing we look for, any piece of legislation. Yay for wonderful internet. Let's try that again. And again. Right. First section in any piece of legislation I look at is Section 2, commencement. Oh, what a surprise, guys. This act commences on a day to be fixed by proclamation. So, can you please provide a copy of the proclamation certificate allowing this act to commence lawfully? However, if no day has been fixed by July 1st, the act is on that day. And the Acts Interpretation Act of 1954, which is their bastardized amended version, not the 1901, does not apply to this act, which is hilarious. So they can't use the Acts Interpretation to interpret this act. Can't make one act exempt and superior to others. The laws are all equal except for state and federal, of course, and we're all equal before the law. So if no day has been fixed by, I'm not sure how the act commences in the absence of a proclamation, certificate, or royal assent. So that's a good one to ask for the commencement of the act, as to how that occurred in the absence of a proclamation, certificate, or royal assent. Now, 235, 237, and chapter 10. So let's have a look through, as these are all the bits that they've referenced. Chapter 7. And this is why I do this on Ostley, guys, so I can scroll through without scrolling through hundreds and hundreds of pages to find the bit that we're actually looking for.
Well, you get to steer the TV.
So, chapter 10, appointment and power of officers. So, this has got how they get to be. They need to be qualified as well. Appoint any of the following persons as inspectors, public service, employee of the Commonwealth, person who performs functions. There's nothing there for their qualifications. They're appropriately qualified. So, there's nothing in there that's going to help us under that bit for how they can. Oh, and it's gone all the way back. Sorry, guys. This is why this is painful going through some of this. No, we've gone too far. Part 7, Chapter 9, Programs for Surveillance, Authorising and Enforcing Biosecurity Programs. So have a look through some of this. Now, it does reference 235, 237, and 238. I'll go back to the powers and appointments of officers. So referenced here, any of the following may authorise and carry out a biosecurity program, chief executive, local government, which we all know don't exist, chief executive and one or more local governments, if the chief executive officer of each local government agrees, hence why we need details of that consultation. My God, this is so relevant. Person for program means a chief executive, local government authorised, or an invasive animal board authorised chairperson of the board. So all these authorisations need to be provided by their appointed authorised officer. I'll just move this up there, guys. So each relevant person for program authorisation must ensure that each authorised officer who is proposed by the relevant person to act under a biosecurity program is informed of the contents of the program authorisation. So being over some of this is what they are and aren't allowed to do. And if they're not aware of that and they're not authorised to be an authorised person under that. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to go back to up too far. 237 and 238. What a program authorisation must state. So for the program to be authorised, these are the prerequisites under 236 that it must be compliant with. That'll be worth having a read for you guys in southeast Queensland. Oh, this is shitful that it's going all the way back to the start of the Act every time, guys. Now, reference 237 and 238, given a direction for prevention and control program. Now, these are the sections that referenced in their lovely little glossy flyer. Any reasonable time and place situated to where, which they've quoted, direct and owner. This is just a direct quote of, yep. Now, despite subsection 1A, the steps a person may be directed to take must be limited to those reasonably necessary for achieving the program's purpose, such as digging out the nest or hitting them with a steam gun. It must give the person an offence warning for the directions, such as if you don't comply with our directions, you may be committing an offence, and this is what the offence is. Once again, does not limit them under Chapter 10. We're going to have a look at that in a sec, guys. So so you lot know, this is what I do when we get sent this information. I go through the Act and I dissect it. Failure to comply with directions. Unless the person has a reasonable excuse. Yes, like you haven't provided your proof of claim that you are in fact an authorised Crown or Commonwealth official or officer. You don't have sufficient ID to confirm that you're an authorised officer or person. to undertake the actions that you're looking at doing. And again, person does not commit an offence against the subsection if the person is not given an offence warning for the direction. Very same to the police guys. They must tell you if you don't move on, you can be arrested. I'm going to give you a warning. If you fail to comply with my directive, we may arrest you and charge you with the following. That information must be provided for an offence to have been committed. Now, I'm just looking for our chapter 10. These are all the divisions. Maybe we missed chapter 10. Let me just go back a bit and see if we can find it here. Chapter 9, Chapter 10, Appointment and Powers of Officers. So that's our next part. So appointment and qualifications, appointment conditions and limit on powers. So an inspector holds office on any conditions stated in. They're not inspectors, they're authorised officers. It's not applicable. $243. Let's go back and have another sticky here then, guys. When office ends, resignation, appointment of authorised persons, appointment qualifications, appointment conditions and limit on powers. They appoint a prescribed class of police officers. The police officers are coming and getting involved and they're not the prescribed class. Subject to 251, they have no business being there for biosecurity things. The regulation, they have to be an appointed prescribed class of police officer to get involved. So powers generally of particular authorised and functions of. So let's have a look at powers generally. As the powers given under this Act, the authorised is subject to the directions of the administrating directive, which would be that Dr. Woods or whatever she was calling herself. Resignation, no, we just covered all that. Powers of a particular authorised officers are limited. Yep. Local government chief executive, two or more. Yeah, we've just been all over this already. Like we need details of the consultations that were conducted between these heads of the departments and the local council. So, guys, as you can see, we're going through all of this now. Also, too, this is the Queensland Biosecurity Act. Have a look at our federal one. If there's conflict between the two, we revert to the federal, and this one becomes invalid. Courtesy 109 of our Constitution, which very clearly states that when the laws of a state are in conflict with that of the Commonwealth, that the latter shall prevail and the former shall, to the extent of its inconsistency, be invalid. So it'd be well worth going over this with the actual Federal Biosecurity Act. Now, I'm just conscious of time and I'm seeing there's a heap of stuff in chat.
I've just letting you know that I've just put that in there. I've just been speaking to Trevor while you've been sharing this, and I will be sharing him this recording tomorrow because he's going to find it very valuable because he is working on his defense. And if you have a look in the chat, this is just what he's shared with me. He's trying to put his defense argument together so we can use this as an education tool, but also we'll share this recording with Trevor in the morning. So just have a read through this, everyone, especially you, Zev. This is what he's just sent me in a message.
All right. So expert analysis indicates, and we'll have to provide the experts to argue with their experts, that prophylactic chemical treatments may in fact accelerate fire ant infestations, raising serious concerns about the program's efficacy. This is sounding a lot like the jabs, where that was raising serious concerns over their safety and efficacy as well. I'm just going to leave that one out there for everyone with my reference to the jabs and the comparisons between that and this level of BS. Obstructing biosecurists from applying chemicals in a manner he reasonably believe was harmful is a reasonable excuse. Is within section 336 of the Biosecurity Act. We didn't get to that. At the time, he held a reasonable excuse to prevent interventions that were potentially unlawful, unsafe, and not fit for purpose. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that certainly qualifies to me as a reasonable excuse. Executive orders indefinite authority in absence of evidence that the program would achieve its stated objectives. Yes, proof of claim. I think we mention this nearly every week on here, guys, that the onus of burden of proof is on the one making the claim. If these idiots are going to claim that our procedures and practices are the only possible way that this can be achieved, then provide the proof of. Trevor, when he first looked at this and reached out to us, had numerous organic and non-chemical methods for dealing with the fire ants. There are more options available without the use of these nasty poisons that have detrimental effect on our water, any aquatic-based flora and fauna, on any invertebrate and various other animals where it goes up the food chain for what's eating these poison ants. Our birds, there's been massive reports of birds dropping dead all across southeast Queensland, which again, it's like people dying suddenly. It can't be the jabs. The birds dying suddenly can't be the fire ant poison. It's the same rationale. Well, it's not that because we said it's safe and effective. Fucking prove it. So I'm a bit riled up on this one tonight, guys, but the level of government overreach in recent weeks, especially, is getting out of hand. And anyone that dares question it is automatically now labelled a sovereign citizen, an anti-vaxxer, and a conspiracy theorist. It's their blanket way of attempting to discredit and say, I don't have to hear anything you say now because I've called you a sovereign citizen or a conspiracy theorist or an anti-vaxxer or whatever else. And therefore, anything you say because I've deemed you to be that is irrelevant. It is the most piss poor argument I've ever heard.
I just want to mention, Craig just said the Public Service Act 99, Section 10 Code of Conduct,
Yep.
Accountability.
Well, look, let's have a look at what is public service. There are many people believe that when you're in public service that you're to serve we the public. Yet we are in fact the private. The public is the state.
Mm.
So whenever I'm at any event at any of the rallies or I see footage of, and I see everyone chanting, yelling at the police, "You work for us, you're public servants." They don't work for us. We don't pay them. The state pays them. The state pays them to work for them. The word public comes from publicus in the Latin, in service of the state. So any public servant is in fact not there to serve we the people. They're there to serve their masters in government, who are the state. That is the public. Just a little bit of info on how that works with public servants, guys. So yeah, that's active in the new page, yep. So hang on, please me these act using local governments. Yeah, there's no such thing as a local government. Very great. And again, most aren't wearing correct PPE. They're not being compliant with the OH&S and workplace health and safety standards for the use of. Most of the guys, their prescriptions for the use and the permit for these poison states, they're meant to be wearing cotton, not synthetic, because of the static that sticks to them, to have long sleeved gloves, mask, and to be fully covered. And I've seen footage of the guys walk around in shorts and a high vis t-shirt deploying this shit with no gloves, no mask, no long sleeves. It's meant to be buttoned to the neck even under the terms of the permit. The permit is the conditions that they are permitted to use the poison under. If they're not being compliant with that and they're breaching their OH&S standards, they shouldn't be on the property.
Yeah. We've got 2 minutes left of tonight's call.
Yeah.
I will add these documents to that. If anyone wants to add anything, you've got 30 seconds to put your hand up. Otherwise, we're going to call it a night.
All right, so I'm hoping that helps with anyone in southeast Queensland area dealing with fire ant fuckery. And Anna, that is horrendous that they're doing aerial spraying around Murwillumbah. That is, I've lived around that area. There's a massive farming area, and that means they'll be spraying all the sugarcane and all the other crops that are prolific around that region, which is disgusting. Not to mention the river that runs through that, they're probably spraying all down and putting it down the waterways, affecting all the fishing areas and everything, which will go out to all the catchments and then run inland. So if they're actually doing that, yeah, that's horrendous, Anna. And I'd be doing some potentially for anyone in that region in Northern Rivers to be contacting the flight people, getting flight paths of which planes were doing what and who authorised it to do the blanket spraying over such a massive area there, which is renowned for winds and floods and all the rest of it. So yeah, that's horrendous. Thanks for the heads up, but yeah, I'm doing my best not to get angry and lose my shit over the overreach of government with their sprays, the fire ant poisons, the jabs, the shit we've got going on in Victoria at the moment, where they're spending over $300,000 on machete bins that cost under three grand to make, while slashing 50 million from the police budget in the highest crime spike rate we've got with machete gangs. No, they're slashing 50 mil off police budget, spending over 300K on $3,000 machete bins that no one's using because they're in front of CCTV cameras and lit up. So anyone putting a machete in there will be identified on camera. You
Yeah.
couldn't make shit up, guys. Meanwhile, while we're capping further from our police budget in the middle of the biggest crime rates we've seen here, they've just spent however many millions on the most advanced technical traffic cameras, which completely digital facial rec, the works. So the list goes on and on. And for anyone who wants to know why I'm not a fan of government, I could make out a list that I wouldn't stop for a
I
week on.
don't think you need, I think where you're speaking to the converted here
I
on
am
the call.
just pointing out, guys. My apologies for being a bit passionate with this one tonight, as I thought the fire ant fuckery thing had died down a bit. Obviously not. They're ramping